Funky Politics.
Funky Politics Show.
Funky Politics.
Funky Politics.
Funky Politics.
Funky Politics. Powered by MLGW. Memphis Light Gas and Water.
Keeping it real, right, and funky. Funky Politics. 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 Politics.
You're listening to Funky Politics. This is DC, one of the wonderful hosts of this wonderful program. Sitting right here next to Doc Ward. Doc, what's up?
Does that make me the other wonderful host of the other wonderful program?
He's the assistant wonderful host of this program.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right, man. You are.
Vice wonderful host. Man.
Vice wonderful. That's
anyway,
right.
man.
What's up, man?
Nothing. I got a question.
Yeah.
Think about the worst thing you ever did in your life. The worst thing you ever did in your life.
Almost through. I'm sorry, go ahead.
If you could take it back, if you could right the wrong, cure the cancer, make it all good again, would you do it? Would you do it? Looking at it now, would you do it?
Yes.
Okay. So, fast forward to now, as I always say.
I got you.
Here's Bill Clinton with the opportunity of a lifetime
to right a wrong.
Wow. Craig Melvin, and I ordinarily we don't endorse other people. Craig Melvin is an excellent up-and-coming, or already here, African-American reporter on MSNBC. That's right. Has the opportunity, the privilege of interviewing the president, and he asked him a simple question. Because they're talking about his new book.
That's right.
Okay? Wasn't intended to linger on.
That's right.
He asked him a simple question. He says to him, did you ever apologize to Monica Lewinsky? Now, there's two answers to this.
That's right.
There's, yes, I have, and I would do it over and over again. It was a terrible time and a terrible thing. Or there's, no, I haven't. I wish I could, and I'll do it right now on television.
That's right.
But instead, Bill starts talking about, I lost $16 million. Nobody cares about that. This is the Me Too movement, Bill. Wake up, man. We don't want to get out. If you can't say it in 10 seconds, it's no good.
That's right.
Say yes, say no, move on. Now, all of a sudden, what was supposed to be a book tour that was supposed to really be a good thing about what he's doing, now people are calling his last political stand probably in his life.
I heard that.
Now, I think that's drastic. I really do.
Well,
I think that's drastic.
But it was riveting what he said, though. And like you said, if you had the opportunity to walk it back, and he's walking a little bit of it back.
Well, now he did. The next day he did, But
the damage is done, right?
Yeah, already done, man. You never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Well, speaking of first impression,
it's already been stained.
Speaking of first impression,
it's already been stained.
I understand.
No pun intended.
Waddell. Waddell.
Oh, that's a first impression that you want to hear. He's making his first impression on the national stage on Funky Politics. This is the 17-year-old third cousin of Muhammad Ali and the grandson of Jan Waddell, the attorney in Louisville, famous attorney in Louisville. And he is talking to us today about life as a young, intelligent African American making it in the world today with all the things going on. And he's going to be funky, y'all.
Funky and I don't know what.
So listen to him and listen up as we get funky. Right here on Funky Politics.
Powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Funky Politics.
We're getting funky, y'all.
33% of Americans have a college degree. 43% of Africans in this country have a college degree. These are African immigrants that are coming into this country. They didn't have the opportunity and access, but they came over here in this American dream and created within this framework the opportunity that this country was set up, the ideal it was set on. And now to say that these people, because the disparaging remark goes further than just hole.
It's Funky Politics on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
KUDZUKIAN! Politics is what we do. We just make it funky.
Get the funk out my face. Get the funk out my face. Get the funk out my face. Get the funk out my face.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. I'm DC, one of the hosts of this wonderful program, sitting next to my good friend, Doc Ward. Doc, how are you, sir?
I'm encouraged, man. I don't ordinarily get encouraged.
Well, praise the Lord, you're encouraged.
Praise him. Praise him. Won't he do it?
Well, he will do it now.
He will do it.
You know what? Dialoguing with us this afternoon, we have a young brother out of Louisville, Kentucky,
yes, sir.
Sean Waddell, who happens to be a social activist. Hey, Sean, how are you? Welcome to Funky Politics.
I'm doing great, sir.
Yeah, a little bit about Sean for our audience, because Sean is a rising star. We would not have him on this show
if he was
not a rising star.
That's correct.
So, I mean, that's to say that. And then he's not just a rising star from Kentucky. He's a rising star, a rising social activist, and a rising scholar from Kentucky that is very big in that way on the youth scene. And he gets a lot of that from the family that he's a part of, because he is a member of the family of Muhammad Ali, the late great boxing champion and social activist himself. And he was inspired a lot for what he's doing today by the life that was led by Muhammad Ali, who is his cousin. Also, he is the grandson of Jan Waddell, who is a very famed barrister in the city of Louisville, Kentucky as well. So he comes by it honestly. He can give it to us honestly.
You plug in the law piece.
I'm just telling the man, hey, I'm just telling the truth.
And a future Howard or
there you
Vanderbilt,
go. No, future Howard. I'm going to claim him.
Hey, maybe Harvard too. Maybe both.
Yeah, we're going to call it. All right, check this out. We want to get right into this thing, Sean. Let's talk about the space that you've helped create for yourself and right there in Louisville that is actually spread it around. I would say, what do you call it? Is Louisville not the Southeast? It's like the mid-central, south-central kind of piece of our country, and it's spreading around.
All of it.
This deal about black youth and black intelligentsia, how you guys are looked at from a standpoint, not only your peers, but from outside of your peer window. Let's talk a little bit about that, all right, Sean?
Yeah, most definitely. I would say from the outside window, being black and in Louisville is one of the most segregated cities in the United States of America. The black communities here, mainly in West Louisville, have the worst teachers, the worst funding, the worst books, the worst supplies, and oftentimes we as black children are set up to fail. So when there are black students that are steadfast in their eagerness to learn and choose to seek an education and to seek it as they should, they are oftentimes looked upon as obscure or geeky or weird or strange. And it's a pretty weird space to occupy as a black person growing up, because you oftentimes not only endure that from white society, who has already labeled you as an outcast, but you endure that from your peers, who I would say have fallen into the trap of believing that education is part of whiteness, and that to seek education is to seek being other than being black, when in reality, education is liberatory, and education is the gateway to our future. So we meaning black students who choose education and choose to read and to know and seek after truth, we occupy a very weird, strange space between the two worlds, black and white.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
So when you're out there looking in your quest for knowledge, because as you said, you're in a unique space, what are some examples of what you're talking about as it relates to you seeking the knowledge, not getting what you need or not having your needs met?
Well, I would say, even though we have the segregation in Louisville, which breeds stereotypes and which creates an atmosphere of fear, mainly whites towards blacks, and even blacks that choose oftentimes blacks towards blacks, a sense of fear among each other. Our needs are not met in that a lot of the schools don't necessarily provide what's needed. But for me individually, my parents, they chose to, despite not being wealthy, they chose to put aside large amounts of money to fund me going to a private school. Because the public schools here, especially the ones available to those that live in low-income neighborhoods, which happen to be people of color, black and brown, aren't the best schools. I was afforded the chance to go to a white, more so elite private school, where I learned there, and I was educated on a very high level at a young age. And I would say for me, I had the opportunity to have my educational needs met, but while learning and while growing and being groomed in an environment that put education first and that pushed me to my very best, I was also in that white space, in that white environment, fetishized and looked upon as an obscure toy, to say. I was a black kid that wasn't what they wanted. They wanted me to be the rapper, the basketball player, somebody who could fit in and give them entertainment.
Stereotypical African Americans, what you're saying.
Yes, sir. And when I first came into that kind of environment, I was very young, and like many black kids when they come into similar environments, which is a huge dilemma that black kids in white spaces, mainly private schools, endure, is, that we're forced to reshape our identity in a space that's contrary to what we had known in the past. So when I came in, I didn't know much about these stereotypes, and I was going along to get along kind of thing. But as I grew and learned, I found that there was a general fear between the white students who are my age and their parents and their grandparents that they feared a black student, a young black person, being just as serious, just as focused, just as studious, just as intelligent as their white youth.
Well, let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there, Sean, real quick, and just in a few seconds. All right, I'm looking at them juxtaposing this because on one hand, West Louisville, you're saying that the resources are low, the books are terrible, the teachers are terrible, is what you're saying. Right. And then on the other hand, you've been afforded an opportunity to attend a private school with the majority white students, no doubt, and you fit into this new space now. But there's still no kind of satisfaction there in your soul or in your being because now you're somewhere that you really don't want to be. Work that one out for me just a little bit. How does that happen?
That's something that I've thought about since I was, say, in 6th grade. I've been thinking about this forever, and what I've sort of come to is that in the United States of America, I've never really experienced other parts of the world, but I know for a fact that in this society, there is no solid home for the black man and woman. We are a people that fit in different molds that have been preset for us, and in these different molds, we try to make them as homey as they can be, and we try to fit ourselves to these different environments. But in reality, we are trying to turn spaces and systems and constructs that were never necessarily built for us into something for us. So how have I coped with this realization? I came to realize that I must speak up and say something so that other young black people, that other older black people, that other people can see that this is a problem, that this is something that must be seen, that this is something that must be called out, and so that by the time I have black children, that my children won't grow up trying to feel like something that they're not, are feeling like they are forced to act other than themselves, being ashamed of who they are. I'm hoping that by me saying something and by me speaking up, more black people will come to the consciousness that we must pull our minds together and our thinking and our resources to try to create the world that we want. It's a very difficult subject to talk about because it's like you're in between two worlds being tugged back and forth, and you don't belong in either part. Because the black student that goes to the white school and is well educated, his friends in his neighborhood no longer associate with him because he's not cool on the block. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then the white kids don't associate with him if he's too much like the boys on the block because, he's ghetto, he's not one of us, he doesn't belong in the country clubs and stuff like that. So I realized that if I'm not going to act like I don't see a problem and just go along and just choose, I'm going to go along with the white boys, or I'm going to go along with my brothers in the hood, just the way things are. If I tried to do that, and I did in the past, I wasn't comfortable knowing that I know something's wrong and acting like something's not wrong. So I cope with my realizations of this system by speaking out, by saying something, hoping that others will see something and realize the need to make something different.
Well, coping with it by speaking out is definitely an answer. But I just want to say one thing, and this is the first funky thing, that the philosophy that you share about the world, this country, not necessarily having everything that is attainable and everything that's fit for the African American man is the same philosophy that some other well-known African American had by the name of Malcolm Little. We called him Malcolm X. And that's why this show is funky. I
love that, man.
That's why this show is funky, because even 50 plus years after he's left the scene, you see the same circular philosophy generated to fit today's issue. That's why we keep doing what we're doing, because we got a long, funky way to go on this show with you. And you're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Get the funk out of the face. the funk out my face.
We're getting funky, y'all.
The Memphis Park with the Jefferson Davis statue was put up in 1964 during the Civil Rights Movement. These were all symbols of an oppression. These statues need to be in a historical context. They need to be in a museum, a Civil War memorial site, maybe even be at the ancestral home. All these things are valid places, but a public place of prominence was not where they needed to be.
It's Funky Politics on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
KUDZUKIAN!
Keeping it real, right, and funky. Funky Politics. 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 Politics.
Right here and now, I do declare this to be the new funky beat of the year. If you want a funky beat, why not use mine? I be rocking funky beats all the time. So now's the time, and this is the chance.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. I'm DC, one of the hosts of this wonderful program, sitting along with Doc Ward. Doc, how are you, sir?
I'm surreptitiously divine.
Surreptitiously
Something
divine.
like surreptitiously, whatever you had to say.
I got you.
I'm confidently inspired.
You having a great day.
I was confidently inspired before, but somebody threw my confidently inspired in the can.
Oh, God.
So you
What?
can't have a lot of inspiration when they throw your confidence away.
You know what? You're inspiring to those of us who listen to Funky Politics and to me.
Yeah, I guess except
Only
for,
on Tuesday and Wednesday, though.
except for the production folks. They throw my stuff away.
Whatever. Anyway. Hey, look, we've got a young brother visiting with us in the studio today out of Louisville, Kentucky, Sean Waddell.
Is this like Groundhog Day?
No.
That's why I was confidently inspired, because Sean Waddell is here.
Hey, tell us a little bit about Sean Waddell.
Sean Waddell is here. Sean Waddell is a young social activist out of Louisville, Kentucky, who is the grandson of Jan Waddell, famed barrist in Louisville, who is the third cousin of Muhammad Ali. I don't think I have famed human rights activist through boxing, gold medalist, and extraordinary and everything else.
One of our brothers.
Right. One of our icons of life.
Yes, sir.
And he is definitely on his way to filling those shoes that have been laid for him.
That's right.
He's got a platform, he's got a position, and he's got a message. And we are getting that message right here on Funky Politics. That's why I'm confidently inspired.
I'm glad to see that.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that.
So,
Sean, let's talk about the youth of today in a space where a lot of times those of us who are older and some in the community want to put a lot of the violence in our communities off on our young people. And we know a lot of times it's not just the young people. There's some other extenuating circumstances that bring some of us to that particular space. Let's talk about you and in Louisville, West Louisville, and some places around the country about gun violence in our youth.
Can we talk about Parkland too, particularly?
Yeah, sure.
Because that's the cause du jour.
Active shooting on some of these campuses that have brought our young people to the forefront, who are now activists because of it also.
Unless we omit Sean is in high school now, going into
that's
senior
right. That's
year.
right. He's a senior.
Right.
And with Parkland and Santa Fe and these other mass shootings that have been in the school,
yes,
but not just in the school, but those that occur on the street. You know, how are you all coping and dealing with that from an activist standpoint now?
One thing that we're seeing from Parkland is that young voices are being shaped. Many students who were formerly silent about gun violence because it didn't affect them or because it wasn't their family, it was just out of their world, are now becoming more aware of these issues. And what we're seeing now is quite interesting. We're seeing an intersectionality between two different worlds. You have from Parkland, and Parkland is where I really began to see this shift. And I wasn't sure of how this was going to go. I wasn't sure if the black youth who are representing gun violence in our neighborhoods and our cousins and our brothers and our sisters getting shot outside in the streets of America from city to city, I wasn't sure how our voices and mainly suburban white students who are dealing with active shooters in their schools, I wasn't sure how this would go together. And I think when we saw the march on Washington, we're seeing
the youth march
coming together.
The youth march on Washington that occurred. You right?
Yeah,
right.
the youth march on Washington.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We're seeing these two different realities with the same problem come together.
But are they the same problem, though? And I saw, and this is just from a 51-year-old man's point of view, I saw
Man,
the
you're
country yeah, I'm old. I saw the country rally. A lot of folks in our country rally to the cause and said, this has got to stop. We're going to talk to legislators. We're going to talk about this. We're going to push this, the Second Amendment, this. And then I still see my young brothers and sisters gunned down in Chicago. I still see them gunned down in the streets of Memphis. I still see them gunned down in the streets of Louisville, L.A., San Jose. Let's just call it national. Let's call it like we see it.
National crisis.
Yeah, national crises. But again, I don't see the attention, and call me if I'm wrong again, I don't see the attention to the call to arms of that anymore.
But isn't that what David Hogg said? Actually, he said.
David tried to address it. I think
but he addressed it in the context of his school, where he said 25% of the students at Parkland are African American, and no one is really talking to them. But in the greater portion of his speech, even if it was intended or unintended, was, as you just said, the reality of the African American child is that there's violence occurring in that community every day.
That's right.
Every day, and it's not being televised. It's not being the subject of all of the woe is me. Look at these poor children.
That's right.
It's being televised as that's them over there doing what they do. That's what they're used to, and that's I think where this Parkland is here, and what we're experiencing in the inner city is coming together now under one roof.
Yeah.
And the consolidation of that is what's making this movement so powerful, right?
To tag along with that and answer your question, you said, is this really the same problem? That's what I had said previously. When I say that, I mean it's the same in that we are two groups of people, meaning the mainly suburban white kids and then the black kids. We're two groups of youth growing up in the United States of America who are facing pressure and fear from gun violence. That is the only regard in which we are the same. And because the nature of our problems and the way they're being seen by the country are very different, and it reveals hypocrisy, and it's actually very disheartening. And because of that, it really is to see young white children when there's gun violence in their communities, to see them speak up and to be so well received by the nation and be looked upon as innocent children slaying the Goliath of silence. It's really offensive, because black children and black communities have been rising up and speaking out about the same problems for a long time. So when the youth rally in Washington, D.C. occurred, and I had friends go, and some asked me to come, and some asked me to speak at the rally here in Louisville, I actually was unsure of how things were to pan out, and I refused to go to these rallies and speak because I did not feel as though there was a even amount of respect and acknowledgement between black and white. I felt that the white community and the white students who were feeling a glint of what we've been feeling for a long time, now that they're suffering, they want to go get a black person and, we're suffering too. But when we're suffering, it's silence. So I was very offended by that great amount of hypocrisy. But now I'm seeing many of those children, white suburban children who know nothing of the black community, I'm seeing them break away from some of their parents' old thinking. I've seen some of them actually come into inner city communities for dialogue and for discussion, and they want to learn more about what black youth are experiencing, and more black youth are being able to tie their message with them.
Well, that's what I think I saw in viewing the march, because you had the situation at Parkland, but then you also had a gentleman like Zion Kelly, whose brother Zaire Kelly was shot in Washington D.C. in the street by some. Obviously, this person is deranged as well, but it was a murderer. It wasn't anything like a mass shooting or anything else. They were going home from practice. He was coming home from basketball practice or something of that nature, and was shot. And at the time, it looked at as the poor story of a youth being shot on the streets of D.C. Having lived in D.C., I remember when they had almost 400 people killed in that one little area in D.C., not the Virginia, Maryland, what they call it now, DMV, just Washington, D.C.
DMV, yeah.
Just Washington, D.C., the 64 square mile Washington, D.C., almost 400 people being killed. And those murders, even when I was a teenager, of teenagers was looked at as that's just something that happens. But now it's starting to be looked at as a universal issue when it's compared and juxtaposed with the mass shootings that are occurring in the suburbs. And I think what you all have as youth is a very important movement, and the only thing that's going to move these us intelligent adults past this whole Second Amendment shield that we throw up every time something as repugnant as these youth killings comes up on our news and in our society. So to the extent that I am definitely have 100% confidence in your intellectual ability, I would say to you, please do not ever turn down the opportunity to share your intellect with the community, your position with the community ever again, because I know the opportunity is going to come up on the subject matter, and I hope that you will be there standing in the forefront, taking the lead, holding the flag for this very important subject.
You know what?
Yes, sir.
Sean Waddell.
Yes, sir.
Social activist, Louisville, Kentucky.
Yep.
Man, going places. You know what, Sean? So those of us who want to follow you, our listeners out there in podcast world, how can they? And I'm not a big Instagram person, so I don't know anything about all of that stuff. But how do they find you? How do they what do they go? They go to YouTube. Instagram? Is there something called Instagram?
There was, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's actually the only platform that I have up right now.
Is that right?
Instagram. At I am Sean Waddell. That's my current platform, but I'm in the process of building a website and then a YouTube channel as well.
So repeat that again for me, Sean. I am what?
I am Sean Waddell.
And that's
my Instagram platform.
Appreciate it, man.
There you go.
Man, look, Sean, I tell you what. I got an attorney that needs to talk to you one day about being a lawyer, all right, man?
Wow.
One of these days, pretty soon, young brother, all right? Hey, Sean Waddell on Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Riffin' on Jazz.
This next gentleman we're talking about has an unforgettable voice.
My sugar is so refined.
Jazz was the happiest.
Yeah,
Callaway went to my school.
Oh, really?
Yes, he's not an alum because he didn't graduate. He has some gigs to do.
Riffin' on Jazz on the KUDZUKIAN Network. Politics is what we do. We just make it funky.
Thinking of a master plan. Cause ain't nothing but sweat inside my hands. So I dig into my pocket, all my money spent. So I get deeper, but still coming up with lint. So I start my mission, leave my residence. Thinking how could I get some dead presidents.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. I am DC, one of the hosts of this wonderful program, sitting right alongside my trusty co-host, Doc Ford. Doc, how are you, sir?
Trusty, man. That's how I am.
Trusty?
Trusty.
I put my wallet up, though. I didn't.
Trusty.
A trustee.
You're
trusty.
I'm trusty. You're a musty.
Whatever. You know what? Dialoguing with us today, visiting with us on Funky Politics today.
Yeah, funky.
That's right, really funky.
There we go.
We've got a young brother out of Louisville, Kentucky, who's a social activist, who's a member of a prominent family out of Louisville, the Ali family, and who's doing some great work in the community right there in Louisville. That is Sean Waddell. Welcome to Funky Politics, brother Sean. How are you?
Thank you, sir. I'm doing well today. How about yourself?
Man, we are great. It's good and hot where I'm at, and the air is off, and I feel even hotter right now. Doc, what about you? You okay?
I'm good, man.
Well, I tell you what.
I can function anywhere because I'm cold-blooded, man.
You really are cold. You really are cold. Whatever. Hey, Sean, we want to jump right in this thing with you. I know we got you just for a little while, but let's talk about in terms of you're a black youth, young person. You're a senior in high school, I understand, and you're looking at something now that a lot of us at our age didn't see. You're looking at a presidency or a place in time now where we have someone who in the White House who doesn't look like you now for a change and doesn't necessarily speak your language right now. How are you all adjusting in terms of from a youthful standpoint and an activist standpoint? Where are you at in this space?
I want to first start with President Obama. Being able to grow up under his presidency, I would say lifted a sense of, I would say, a minor badge of inferiority or impossibility off the minds of a lot of black children and told them, what can't you do? This man's right before you. This man is the commander-in-chief. He changed the thinking of black youth when we saw President Obama. And he was the only president. I didn't really remember much of Bush. So President Obama to President Trump is really all I know in terms of living under presidents. So seeing President Trump after President Obama has been an extraordinary shift, to say the least. But when looking at President Trump, I say,
in what way? In what way? And I don't mean to, okay, in what way has it been an extraordinary shift? And I'm asking you as a resource, as someone who has really only known President Barack Obama. Now you know Donald Trump. What is that shift?
I see the shift in attitudes of people walking down the street. He's more than a shift in minds in the White House. He represents a cultural shift, a mental shift. He represents a changing of times, whether we like it or not. He's a wake-up call to the United States and to the world that a lot of old thinking and a lot of rogue thinking, a lot of evil thinking and white supremacy, which we thought had been hidden or which we thought had been overcome. I look at the old newspapers and articles that came out around 2008 during Obama's running and when he became president. Oh, America headed towards a post-racial society. Are we overcoming? And then to see right now the rise in Islamophobia and the rise of anti-blackness across the world, this man represents a shift in every arena of life, culturally, politically, mentally. He's changed everything in the short time that he's been on the scene.
And you're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
Let me jump right now. You said something, Sean, that's piqued my interest, and that's this post-racial time that President Obama was actually, it was a part of his mantra. Do you believe that we were in, even when he was president, do you believe we were in a post-racial period of time?
During Barack Obama's presidency, I never thought that we were approaching a post-racial era because all around me was racism in school and in the environment. I never thought that we were reaching. I actually thought that everybody around me was faking and lying. That, so when I see President Trump, he represents to me a lot of attitudes that I've been around for a long time. So when I see people so shocked by Trump, I'm like, oh, now you get to see what I've been around for a minute. But when I look at the Obama presidency, I see it as a clean face covering a dirty mind. He was a clean man, a clean family, a clean record. I think he had great aspirations and great hopes for this country. But you cannot cover a dirty mind and a dirty past and a dirty thinking. And when I speak about that, I'm talking about the history of the United States government and the United States in general with racism and white supremacy and its failure to look at its injustices and correct them. You cannot put this clean black man with hopes and aspirations, basically echoing the call of Dr. King. You can't put that in front of all this wrongdoing, prejudice, and injustice and think that this is going to this is going to be your atonement, that you're going to be, this is all going to be washed away.
Right.
And I actually think that attempt angered a lot of white Americans. They hated to see this image of this black man forcing us to act like we like these Muslims, like we like these black people. And now with Trump, many people feel like finally we can take off the mask, we can take back our country and, be just as nasty as we were before Obama and during Obama's presidency.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this then, because you were talking about, I've heard this all of my life, about us not being able to whitewash the past and America's brutal past as it relates to the treatment of African Americans and other people of color, non-white people, no matter what we do, no matter what successes and strides we make racially. So for me, and just asking you as a youth, what do you think that great atonement is going to be? What is it that's going to have to actually happen? And I mean realistically, because some things are just not going to happen.
Will there be one?
You're not going to be. It's not going to be a 40 acres and a mule. At least not given to you by the government. So, what is that great atonement that's going to occur? What does that look like? Or are we just doomed to try to put our best foot forward in a land of hypocrisy for all time from now on? I mean, what does that a Day of Atonement look like?
We're definitely not doomed. I don't believe in any doom. I think that we're reaching that shift right now with President Trump. I think a lot of people think that President Trump is a great halt, a great deterrent in the road towards establishing justice, freedom, and liberty for all. But what I tell people, and it shocks most people when I say it, that I think Trump is actually doing something good and that he's manifesting the wrong so bluntly, so clearly, that you cannot deny the truth of American racism, of American hypocrisy, of white supremacy in this land. But to answer your question of what does the Great Atonement or America and this society coming to grips with its past look like, I think it first starts with establishing the universal truth of what has been done. There's so many lies and so much pollution and whitewashing around the truth of history. I read an article not too long ago, schools in Texas wanting to take out the word slavery in textbooks, or the civil rights movement. They try to brainwash us at a young age where, black people were suffering. We marched down the streets and then we overcame.
Or Kanye West says that slavery was a choice.
Yeah, and that mess too. That's marketing right there.
Yeah.
But what must happen is we must come to the point where we look in, and I say we, I mean all Americans, black and white, because you have many black people who don't want to look at themselves in the context of the American picture because they want to get in with the white man and look they don't even want to think about the past because they want to, we're here now. But in reality, we live a double life. We live a lie in this country, and this lie is erupting. The lie is breaking up. Falsehood cannot linger too long. The lie is being broken up that we have overcome. So what does overcoming look like? It looks like us acknowledging the wrong. This society must acknowledge what it has done to African Americans. African Americans must learn the history of the United States. We must learn the history of ourselves. And then once we learn ourselves, we must put this new mind of truth where we know what's been done, where we're going. We must put this new mind with each other first. African Americans must work together to build, I think, first an economic base. You said the 40 acres of the mule is not going to come. I totally agree. Once we know ourselves in the context of this history and what's been done to us, the first step, I think, is to put an economic base together among African Americans and among other people of color and oppressed people where we can begin to control our communities. And then from that, where we can begin to fund our own education, things of that nature. Because, as you said, it's not going to get better from the system down. That's an old philosophy that I think is meant to keep the oppressed gentle and waiting for the oppressor. The oppressed.
Yeah, the way to keep the oppressed oppressed. That's what it is.
Exactly. So I think that the solution is going to come from us recognizing us. The door has closed. I think our generation understands more than previous generations that our future is not going to lie in other people. Our future is not going to lie in protesting. Our future is not going to lie in sitting in. It's not going to lie in marching. Our future is going to lie in African-American unity, in the coming together of different African-American minds, and in people of color, not proving to white society and the government and others that we are capable, but proving to ourselves that we are worthy and that our minds and our resources and our tools belong right with each other and in each other. That's where Black America's future is. And I think once white America and the racist mind of this country sees Black Americans not begging them, not persisting that we be included in the institutions that weren't built for us, I think many white Americans will find themselves not having racist attitudes. I think the root of racist attitudes, and it's very hypocritical, the root of racist attitudes in this country is oftentimes seeing the black man in a begging position. And I mean black man and black woman, our people, seeing us in a condition where we are asking them for something. They feel like they are innately a superior, like, we can help them out when we want to. That comes from that, although they put us in the position to need their help. But I think once we realize our mental fortitude and our strength, and Trump is really helping this because he's showing us we don't really want you in our picture. So I say to Trump, for him saying that, and for him showing our youth today that he's actually helping us see that, maybe it's time for us to begin to work together and solve our own problems.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems to me like you've got it wrapped up right there. The economic agenda, the political agenda, all important, but there has to be acknowledgement from everyone in every culture of their role, good and bad, in shaping America. And that's why that's why we get it from the people that have gone on and have years, and those who are up and coming rising stars. That's the way we do it.
We really appreciate this young brother on the show today.
Yep.
Pardon wisdom to those of us who've been around a while.
But the other thing is, I know you're going somewhere.
Yeah.
After you leave Howard and Harvard and Vanderbilt and everywhere else, wherever you want to go, I'm looking forward to seeing you making the decisions for our tomorrow. I'm looking forward to
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for
I'm looking forward to it.
Hey,
It's going to be a heavy job, but...
Hey, what do they say? Heavy the head is a crown that's worn, right?
There you go. That's it.
Young brother, keep hanging in there with us, all right, Brother Sean Waddell, social activist, Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you for being with us on Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network.
This is Terry Freeman. I'm president of the National Civil Rights Museum, and you are listening to Funky Politics, powered by KUDZUKIAN.
Riffin' on Jazz.
Riffin' on Jazz is getting started on a new season. If you caught me, Melvin Massey, and my man Howard Robertson last season, I think you'll get a kick out of this one. Each Friday at 7 p.m. right here on the Jazz Lover, U92 FM.
Riffin' on Jazz on the KUDZUKIAN Network. KUDZUKIAN.